Hello everybody. So this video, I wanted to talk about how conversation groups can be really effective. That's a really big part of my community, as well as a big part of how I'm able to still maintain many of the languages that I know. And I just wanted to share how that has been effective, some benefits of that, and then any particular challenges, as well as any tips that I have. So I'm going to get into it. Just getting back from my French conversation group in New York. I got all my stickers. I speak more languages than that, but that is what I was thinking. That's just like the languages I know without English to a certain extent. So yeah. Okay, so the main benefits of being a part of any conversation group in your target language is, of course, for you to put into practice what you've learned, as well as being able to improve on that. What's really helpful is that if you are if you understand the language and you're just kind of, you've learned the vocabulary, you've learned sentence structure, you just need to put into practice what's second nature. So a lot of times it's like when you're speaking, you're forced to use what you know and hopefully communicate what it is that you're trying to communicate. And then the other part about it is you're meeting people in your community who speak your target language, whether it be as a language learner as well or as a native speaker. So it's a mix of different people. And also there's really no limitations on topics. So if it's just more of like hey, let's just get together and we talk and, we just make friends, then of course that is part of the main benefit of that. And also in the way that you can learn new vocabulary. So what really has been helpful is it's like, I don't know this one word. Okay, well, maybe someone else knows it, because sometimes when we talk about things, it's more so as we're like, I realize I know how to say this, but then I realize, there's a word comes up you've never used before. And you're like, I actually really would like to know what that word is. And someone else may know it. A lot of times with conversation groups, you have people of very different levels. But the main goal is to stay in the target language as much as possible. Obviously not, that doesn't happen all the time, because sometimes people might say, I need to say this in English because I don't know how to say it. Or sometimes it's like, I'm going to say this word in English because because sometimes people, some people are just different. For me, it really has been helpful to really be able to practice circumlocution techniques, so that way I can kind of explain what I'm talking about, and then hopefully someone else knows the word I'm talking about. So those are I would say is your main benefits. You can also create a lot of good friendships that way. And also if you are not a particularly social person, this really helps you to kind of get out of your comfort zone and really just, again, use what you know. Overall, it's a learning experience. And usually the tone that is set in these groups is, we're here to improve our language skills. We're here to improve our speaking and listening skills, or oral communication skills, if that makes sense. So moving on to challenges. This varies, because I'm in two different French conversation groups, one that meets every week, another one that's once a month, and then I'm a part of an Italian group. So sometimes some conversation groups might be more just, spontaneous conversation. You don't have to prepare anything. You just show up and you just talk about whatever, like you would in any sort of social meetup, or a networking event. Sometimes there might be groups where they want you to prepare something there's a topic. So that kind of helps to keep the conversation going. And so some people really like that. They like to prepare something to share, and they go around the table and they will, talk about whatever it is. We want to talk about past tense. So let's all do something or write something about their day or whatever the topic is in that target language. The only challenge I see is that sometimes some people may not like that. Some people really want to really hone in on spontaneous speaking, interpersonal skills. Other people may like that, especially if you're a beginner and you just don't know really what to talk about. For me, I have a really busy schedule, so preparing something to talk about is really oftentimes difficult for me. So I just do it off the top of my head. Sometimes depending on the group, if let's say the group is majority beginners,
or you may have someone who is a beginner. Some people really like those types of environments because it's like, okay, I can help someone who may be struggling to kind of get up to a certain level that maybe you're at. You may be at a more advanced level and you can help someone. There are other people who may find that kind of daunting because, especially like if you're someone who may be at a higher level and you're like, I really want to hone in on my skills and I want to move further, then that may be a challenge. So like if you're a person who in this group, let's say you're all like working on, let's say past tense, future tense or something like that, like indicative tenses, indicative moods. And you maybe be wanting to work on conditional or subjunctive. You want to work on really advanced concepts. That may be difficult and you may feel like that's a point where you may not be getting out of that conversation group what you want. So then that's probably a point where maybe you might need to find another group or find other avenues to be able to work on those, to make those skills more to improve on those skills. Sometimes like the one challenge I know that I don't necessarily have sometimes, but some people can feel intimidated, especially if you're a beginner. So coming to those groups, it's like native speakers. People get intimidated by native speakers. And I personally don't believe that you shouldn't be intimidated because they're all here. They're there for the purpose of, obviously, they want to speak their own language. I mean, I noticed that there are people who are like, oh, I finally have people to speak my own native language. I'm moved to this foreign country. This country that's foreign to me. There's people in my new community that speak my native language. So that's for them, it's just being able to just use that language and people to also help other people at the same time. I mean, like those are the people you really want to learn from, especially if you have interests in traveling to different countries, if you have interest in or traveling to where their native country is. I don't know, studying abroad, living abroad, whatever it is, like going to their particular home country, then that is a benefit to you to pick their brain. I remember when I was at one of my conversation groups, the one that meets weekly, that we had a newcomer and she was actually from Switzerland. I was like, I have so many questions for you because I am fascinated by the fact that, I mean, it is a country with 4 official languages. And I'm like, I have so many questions about, just the, environment being there, the political situation, like what's it like just living there? What part of Switzerland are you from? I have so many interests, there's so many things I can pick their brain about. So I think that, and I think at the same time, that's flattering for a lot of people because it's like, oh, they're interested in where I come from. I mean, even when I was abroad, I mean, I had, my host family as well as friends that I made while I was there who had questions about where specifically I was from. Because I'm from Kentucky. That's my home state. And so like the aspect of the fact that even though I lived in Los Angeles for when I was in college and when I was started working professionally, is that, it's like, oh, well, sometimes people ask me, where is Kentucky? I'm like, think of like Kentucky bourbon. They're like, oh, okay. Okay. So it's kind of funny, like being able to share where you're from and also do it in your target language. And a lot of times I think that with those challenges is that if you don't understand what someone's saying, always ask, like, can you repeat that? Or what do you mean by that? And like learning those types of phrases so that when you encounter these different situations, you're able to kind of have a go-to phrase or go-to sentence or go-to question as to how to get to gain comprehension. So yeah. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit, but yeah. So those are my main challenges. Is sometimes it's like a matter of, are you getting something out of it based on your level? Sometimes people feel intimidated by people, especially native speakers. And then also there's an aspect of whether the activities that they do in those groups may correspond with what you want to do or they may not. So that's just kind of like those challenges or aspect to consider. So my main tips. So I kind of mentioned those, but some of them. But one of the things is the great way to find these groups is you have Meetup, you have Eventbrite, there's Facebook groups in your community. So you'll be able to find these places where they're going to meet up somewhere. So it's better to do it in person. I don't really feel like virtual meetups, those don't really work. I just don't understand in my mind how that would work, but places in your community where you can go to. So this is post-editing jazz, and I will just say that it it is possible for virtual language exchanges to occur. I've attended a couple through Meetup, and I totally admit I was wrong about that. And that's also great if you've moved to a new city and you're like, I still want to maintain my language skills. Then you're able to go and have like that's a great way to make friends, make contacts with people, and who knows, you may hang out with them outside of work, outside of the group, actually. And like I was saying before, just don't feel intimidated. Just really come in with a learner's mindset that I'm here to make as many mistakes as possible. Listen, I mean, I feel like sometimes I am the professional at looking stupid. Like what I said was not right. I mean, even in France, I've said some things where I'm like, oh, that was really unintelligible. They're like, what did you just say? Because my grammar was off and my mind was kind of jumbled up between English and French at one point. And so I've said things that didn't make any sense. And I'm like, okay, hold on. We need to clear our brain. Jazz, what are you trying to say? And I'm like, let's just, just kind of like figure, kind of like unscrambling your brain. So I would say come in with a learner's mindset, because at the end of the day, they're all here to practice and to gain, good conversation skills. So yeah, so if you're feeling really intimidated, that's what I would probably think of it as. And come out learning something new. Like come into it wanting to learn something new. So because sometimes like when I was saying about, like different questions or different phrases to ask for understanding if you don't understand, like think of it as, okay, like how can I may not know this one word, but how can I describe what I'm talking about? So you actually really get a good chance to practice your circumlocution skills. Like if there's something I don't know, like a word I don't know, I will describe with whatever vocabulary I have, and then hopefully that prompts the other person, if they know what the word that you're talking about, they can tell you. Like if I don't know the word for this mouse, I may try to talk around it, find words that to describe, like, oh, that thing. I'm doing it in English, but it's like, oh, that thing that you use to move your computer out, and obviously you're going to use gestures, to move the little thing on your computer. And of course, someone might say, oh, you're talking about a computer mouse. Okay, so that's like, you're really getting a sense of how can I communicate what I need to communicate. And then eventually when you travel abroad, when you encounter other native speakers, you're able to really have the sense of, okay, I think I know how to communicate. Like the point of it is to build confidence that I'm saying something and it's going to make sense. If it's wrong, we're going to fix it. That's the whole point of the group. Yeah. And I think that overall, like what I would say is that, you have the ability to practice your interpersonal skills, because this goes beyond just like, tourism dialogue, like, oh, I need to use the bathroom and things like that. You're literally talking to people about things. Like in my conversation group that meets weekly, sometimes we talk about like things that happen in our week, just learning how to talk about things you normally would talk about. Some people are not, I would say, like somewhat beginner, but they have some knowledge. We have someone in our group who's from Spain, and she is learning learning French. So sometimes we'll say, okay, I think I know what you're talking about, and we'll correct her, we'll add, vocabulary to her. So that way, every time she comes back, we're helping her build confidence in her vocabulary. And it's really great. And the point of the matter, of course, is to stay in your target language. But we really try to emphasize that, you're talking about things you talk about every day. You might say, oh, that's a subjunctive sentence. You would say it this way. Okay. We have one person in our group, the weekly group. She is actually from Quebec. So her accent's a little bit different. So that I've actually gotten a lot more, I've gotten more used to her accent, because Canadian French was something I just was like, I don't really know. So I've learned some Quebecois vocabulary in that sense. But again, it's all a learning experience. And so I hope that you don't feel intimidated. I hope you come into these groups, well, actually find these groups that we really, really like, and find people to just be able to build your own language skills. Because of course, if that's what if you really are passionate about mastering your target language, I think that this is like one of the best ways for you to be able to stay connected to that. So I hope this video is really helpful. And if you are part of a conversation group, let me know in the comments how that has been working for you, or if it has or hasn't, or anything that you have to share about your experiences in a conversation group. I would really love to hear that. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.